All right, today in the fish room, we're working on cleaning things up, and I've got a tip that I use all the time that I mention in live streams, but I don't think people get it. And for me, it's that goldfish are one of the cleanest fish and animals we can possibly use. So, in previous videos, you'd see that like this pond was covered in duckweed, this one was covered in duckweed, that one was covered in duckweed, and most of them, right? We're now down to 3. You can see right here, 1, 2, 3. In each of these, I have the goldfish that we spawned in the 800 gallon. Now, what I like to do is I like to move a few goldfish kind of, 3-inch size in there, and they will eat the duckweed. Now this takes probably 2 to 3 weeks if you're unlucky. If you're lucky and they really got a taste for it, they'll do it quickly. They'll eat fry and stuff like that too. So I've been waiting for there to be big populations in fry, and then I put the goldfish in. You can see one right here just swam off, and this covered yesterday. So you're also waiting for a tipping point. Obviously, nutrients are in there and duckweed's growing, right? But we want them to eat it. And you'll see basically big green goldfish poops floating around in the water and that kind of stuff because they will just go to town on it. Now, yes, he or she just ate some fish food I put in because I'm feeding all of the guppies that are in there. And yes, would they chase down some fry? Probably, but I've got, you can see, 2 or 3 little goldfish, actually 3, in this one. I think there's 2 in here, and then there is, I think, 2 in here as well. I've got an orange one, and so I just want to start documenting this so that you can see all the ways in which I use goldfish. Now this is just one of the ways, getting rid of duckweed. I'm also going to show you guys, these tanks are in stasis mode waiting to move to the new fish room, but I'm also going to show how they're going to clean up all of this algae and that kind of stuff. So you'll see the different ways in which I like to use them. I actually think they're one of the best cleaner fish you can use for things like turtles and things like big aggressive fish. Now, I don't always use fancies. I actually think you've got a little bit to know here. A fancy swims slower. Fancy goldfish swims slower. More fry can get away. If you use a standard comet or feeder goldfish, that kind of stuff, what you're going to see is they're going to be able to chase fry down. So in this instance, I want them slow. In another instance where they would be, let's say I need them to clean up after these turtles, I want them to be fast. With the rummy-nosed tetras, I kind of want them to be slow. And then if I was going to do, I actually clean this aquarium with the goldfish as well. So now there's no duckweed in this one. But over here, we still have some duckweed. African cichlids will eat some duckweed. They haven't finished it off. In this aquarium, with these guys being a little more aggressive, I don't want them picking on the fins of the fancy goldfish, so I would actually use a normal comet or kind of feeder goldfish of same size or bigger to eat this duckweed. And a bigger goldfish can do this in maybe a day or 2, right? But it's also, if I use too big of a goldfish, maybe he'll pull my plants out of the potters. There's things to think about. So I'm going to, use this video to show these different ways. I don't know that I'm going to go get comets and do that, but I will use the fancy goldfish that we spawned and we've been using just to show the progression. And you'll have to take my word for it when I say, it's now been 6 days. You'll just have to take my word for it instead of like an image every day or anything like that. But know that this is one of my favorite ways. Even though the goldfish quote-unquote eat plants, they do really well at eating duckweed, and they leave a lot of other stuff alone, and they're going to constantly clean the bottom as well. That's another thing you get. We're going to use it in that aquarium, but over here, since we got rid of all the duckweed, they basically combed all the crushed coral and just made some piles of gunk. Now I could get in there and siphon that out, but I actually want that to fuel. I need that. Instead of using fertilizer, I'm using that to fuel this guppy grass because we do have fry from these new mollies. So I want that to grow out. And so, I try to do a real natural method here where least amount of stuff going into the aquariums. And, now that the duckweed is gone, if I don't remove this one water lettuce that I have right there with a couple of fry. If I don't remove that and I leave the gunk in, we'll get this guppy grass thriving, and it'll be like, you know, this pond here where we've got some baby teacup platies now. And yeah, we'll chime in when more progress happens. All right, hopefully you guys can see a difference here. This has now been 2 more days. So when I started this, it was a Monday. Now it's currently a Wednesday evening. And I'm hoping between the two, you can see that a lot more duckweed is gone from, ooh, there we go, finally. That poop I was talking about floating around there, that little green thing you see? It's kind of like the inside of a pea, right? Yes, I'm going to put that back in the water. But yeah, there's another one right there. So they just keep doing that. They just keep, you know, it's like a Play-Doh factory coming out of there. They keep eating it up, makes it easier. Not so much movement on this one yet. You know, what happens is that critical mass, so you can see it's starting to thin, and maybe it already was on Monday, but it's starting to thin, and then you'll notice something like this happening. The one over here, still really thick, right? Maybe a little bit of thinning in there, but it's still, you know, it's still a lot of duckweed. And what a lot of times, it'll be thick enough that, you know, we just see the top of it. You can see the goldfish coming through, but you don't realize that it might be that thick in duckweed. So like if I just put my hand in, you know, it's not crazy thick, but you know, these are big old handfuls. And yes, could I speed this up a ton and remove this manually? Yes, but for the sake of the video, I'm letting them doing it natural. Plus, it is the best goldfish food, right? So that's something to know, is like, I'm just, you know, if I finish this first, then I gotta feed them. I'll let them do their thing, and I think they're doing a great job. So I'm gonna finish feeding my fish now, and I'm gonna keep chiming in to kind of show you how this goes along, and we'll show other things too. All right, here's an update. It's now Saturday, so that's been, what, 6 days? This pond is almost done. I might have to move some of the guppy grass so they can actually get to the last corner of it. And then once they finish all this off, I'll move them over to here, which I think there's just, you know, not enough goldfish in here yet. It's receding a little bit. And the last one over here, receding a little bit, but not quite enough to turn the tide. So that's the update. All right, well, they're almost done in this tote. It is now Thursday, so it's been, what, roughly 10 or 11 days. I had to move some of the plants and the sponge filter so they could get to it, but there's a few little duckweed pieces left. Once they polish that off, I'm going to take the goldfish out of here and move them to here, get this one moving faster, still kind of growing faster than the couple of goldfish are eating in there, and then over here, same problem. Now, again, I could scoop a bunch out, alleviate that, but I want to show the power of what they can do, and it's good for them. So I'm not in a rush. Mostly, you know, just want to make sure it gets done. All right, so now I've put my goldfish army to work in this 125-gallon tank. We took all the rummy-nose tetras to Murphy's tank, but now I just want to document kind of each day how these goldfish are going to go through this algae and churn the substrate. So this is just what it looked like with snails. So even when I took the rummy nose out, the snails started chowing down more because they got harassed less. So these goldfish are going to do their magic, and duckweed patrol is pretty much done. So if we go over here, all the tanks, or all the totes, are now duckweed free. These guys came from this tote here and that one over there. So I'll show you, you know, kind of some differences I have going on in my totes. Because I have a lot of live plants and small fish in here, they really churn down the waste, and it makes it more into plant leaves. There's still some debris, but then when you look over here, there's barely any fish and there's no plants. And so you can see those goldfish have really just been mucking this up. So we had 2 goldfish in here, and we had 3 over here. Now, there's some fish in here and there's the plants, so you don't get nearly as much debris buildup. So that's just a little heads up there. The plants, will help scrub that water clean. When there's an imbalance like I have in here, there's algae growing because there's only baby fish in here and I feed way too much. So they grow faster and make sure the couple adults don't prey on them. But yeah, so now you can see what they're gonna do. You can already see they're starting to, if I walk back over, they just went in, 30 seconds, the net's still dripping in fact. But you can see they're already getting to work with churning the substrate and they'll work on that algae and they're gonna just pick up, yep, right there. They're gonna do that 24/7. And yeah, it might take a week or something like that until they scrub this thing clean, but it's amazing. Yes, by the way, that is, the algae is purling because it's got enough light on it. So I'm not changing the light or anything. I could work that angle and all that too, but this is strictly just showing the power of goldfish and not so much, change lighting and do this and put this algae eater in. Like, these goldfish will just do their job. And that is be awesome pets and clean. All right, well, here is the next afternoon. It's noon right now, and the goldfish have been doing a number on this substrate, but you can see now there's all these little piles and they're still munching down. And you can see that one, it's got a little bit of green poop coming out of them, that one too back there. So they're gonna turn all that algae into poop, and then I can just do a quick little gravel vacuum and that stuff and serve as sponge filters. But the water looks terrible. That's because all the debris that had ever settled into gravel or anything like that's being kicked up. And if you test the water, the water will test fine. It just looks bad. So yeah, auto water changes are still going to happen, but I guess the reason I'm filming this part is don't be alarmed if your tank all of a sudden looks mucky. That's just the goldfish doing their job on this. All right. The conclusion of goldfish are the cleanest fish in the world. Here we have the 125. I talked about it all video on how they were going to clean this bad boy up. They have done that. All of the algae is gone. There's no duckweed in here, not that there was in this one to begin with. The goldfish, nice and healthy. And now I need to put fertilizers in there to get the plants growing. So the algae had won the war. Now it's gone. And I learned another tip, by the way. This is something new to me while filming this video. So, the last time you would have saw, I had to clean it. I gravel vac the whole thing, clean the sponges, right? Well, that took about half the water out. And since I have an auto water change system, I walked away. And over the next few days, it basically changes about this much water. So it slowly crept up. You can see a line across the background. All the algae above the line that sat out of water died. Everything down below stayed alive. So that might be another tip. If you had algae on a background, you could drain the water pretty low, let that sit for a few days, and then fill it back up and get rid of that algae too. Now you're still kind of left with a line, so that's not a perfect system, but that was something even I learned. The conclusion being, are goldfish the dirtiest fish? No, I think they are one of the cleanest fish because in the two instances you saw in the ponds and in the tank, they definitely pooped a ton. There's no doubt about that. But they took things that I wanted to be removed from the tank, duckweed and algae, turned them into poop, and then that came out with a gravel vac much easier. If you've ever tried to get rid of either of those, you know it's very manual, labor intensive, and difficult. So now these guys just to get fed really well, live the life until we move to the new studio, and hopefully now you have a better understanding of goldfish. And I really do recommend, you can use fancies like I did, but you can also use just normal kind of feeder goldfish. Just make sure that, as you saw, they'll eat some babies and things like that. I wouldn't necessarily get, a goldfish this big and then have them eat all your rummy nose tetras, but maybe you get one that's this big or two of them, and they do work for 3 months, and then you give them to your grandma's pond, or you give them back to the pet store, something like that. I just think they're one of the best, cleaner fish that we have in this hobby that are so mislabeled and misidentified. They're great pets too, but just like my little dogs, they will make sure crumbs are never on the floor. They are amazing.